cool. Hi everyone. Well, we're Grigoris and Natascha. We're going to talk about growing your user base in uncertain times. So specifically user retention and attraction. A few words about talent.com. We're a market leader in recruitment advertising, and we have over 40 million jobs across the globe in 79 countries. We came to Europe in 2014, and today we count over 400 employees and still counting. And actually this year we secured our Series B funding led by Innovia Capital. That's a Canadian VC, and that was a size of 120 million. And yeah, over to you.
Perfect. So we're going to split the presentation into 5 topics, and we hope to keep your attention as well so you can participate at the end of it. So first of all, we're going to speak about the importance of the user base. Right on, we're going to speak about the challenges that every business is facing during this journey of acquiring new users. Right on about how we grow that user base, and then about retaining those users to keep them coming back to us. And last but not least, about the success measurement. Here is where we also want your point of view about what are the metrics that we follow in order to measure the success. And let me pass the ball back to Natascha, and she is going to enlighten us about why we picked this topic in today's presentation.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very clear we're living in a bit of uncertain times. So we have a political crisis going on, a health crisis going on. Both of those do have an economic impact and cause a lot of uncertainty, and that causes a few effects, specifically in recruiting. So what are those?
So the whole uncertainty has brought quite a lot of issues. Since we are coming from the job vertical, we have faced quite a lot the great resignation, where people are leaving their job to find something else, which is also connected with the labor shortage, and therefore there is a workforce instability. But we shouldn't forget about the inflation, that for us it's a huge topic that we can't really predict the expenses that we have to pay in order to basically to acquire new users. So circling a little bit back to well, what marketplaces used to be, maybe the first one was a neat market, so the stock exchange, and over to shopping centers, etc. You can see that here really nicely, and to the right you see the bigger ones. And they all do have something in common. This slide is really just telling you what do they have in common, and that is really they have hundreds of millions of accounts worldwide, and that is not a coincidence. So this is why we're sort of focusing a bit on that one today. And what are the challenges that we are facing in finding new users? First of all, segmentation. For us, segmentation is an issue because we need to know what the user is basically searching. And for example, with the great resignation we just said before, the challenge is that a lot of users, candidates, they want to find another job, and for example, they are leaving this X sector and they want to go to something else. But we need to know that. So we need to keep asking the user, and we need to encourage the users in order to let us know and keep updating their profile about what they are searching. Right after it comes the attraction, but attraction needs to come with a way that it meets the preferences of the users. So we come back to the segmentation. And then being unique is another challenge. There are so many competitors out there, and being unique is it's a real challenge. But being unique doesn't really mean that you have to be unique 100% to the product that you are giving. But even a small feature inside your product, it might turn things up, and the conversions might grow quite a lot. But let's say that you have overcome those 3 topics and you want to keep those users active. It might be an even tougher challenge. First of all, you have to still be relevant to what you are giving. And even if you make a change, even if you upgrade your product, it needs to be with a way that you balance the situation, not to give so much updates at day 1 to day 2, because users are going to get confused. Right after, you have to time it to know when to offer what, and even be proactive, so you can come to the user before other competitors. And then you have to match it. When, for example, you have a new product in place, you need to know to which user you are going to propose that. So we come back again to the segmentation process.
Yeah, and what we've seen is that the acquisition cost of new users is actually 5 times higher than existing ones. And some studies propose that it's up to 25 times higher. So for us, it's 5 times higher. So it's actually quite expensive to acquire new users or customers. So when we say users, we're obviously talking about accounts. And so you're going to tell us a little bit about on how to fuel that growth.
So what we have seen in our business is that in order to fuel our user base, we have first of all to target high relevant users, because those are the ones that will keep coming back to us. They will interact with what we are giving. But in order to do so, we have to understand the touching points. We have to understand what they are doing, what they are searching, and this is, again, it's a challenge, but this is where we want to go in order to bring them relevant results. And we also have to consider that we need to keep optimizing our products. We need to optimize also the landing pages, because basically the landing page is the first thing that somebody will see when they launch to our website. And for example, when back before like 2 or 3 years with Talent.com, we had the same landing page for every device. For example, the same landing page for desktop and the same for mobile. But we saw that analyzing the data, we saw that users from mobile wanted to see different things than that they wanted. They were browsing our website from the desktop. So once we optimized those landing pages, we saw immediately that the conversion rate was really, really high after that. And Natascha is going to speak a little bit about the user retention.
Yeah. So basically, once you have the user, you want to retain them, and actually 25% normally across all industries of the users are the ones that stay on your website, that come back after they convert once. And studies also suggest that if you increase that by only 5%, you can increase your revenue by 25 up to 95%. So this is really something you need to work on. And first, you want to work on signals that you can identify when you need to re-engage the customer. You don't want to be too annoying, but you also don't want to let it fall under the rug, because then a competitor could come in and the user will change and go to your competitor. So really work on identifying that, and do that also segment-based, because a user like me might probably need a bit less re-engagement than a user like you or like you. You probably need a bit more. So also understand the areas of interest. That is obviously a no-brainer. But what you can do with that then is you can attract through new matches and new propositions, and also attractive promotions. So with those users that you already have, the accounts you already have, the good thing is you have a lot of data already on them. Use that in order to construct the right experience that you can offer, because user retention is really all about just the service that you offer to the user, so servicing them in a good way. And then stepping away a little bit from data, this point is really more about qualitative feedback. And we heard that yesterday also in the presentation from Le Bon Coin. Martin was saying, I believe they do guerrilla testing and surveys, all of those things. Those are also important, because the data is going to tell you a lot, but a few things you can learn when you ask your users directly. So this is definitely something you shouldn't neglect.
And how is success measured by everyone? Here is where we want to hear your point of view as well. So in Talent.com, we measure success based on conversion rate. So how many people that basically they visit our website, they turn into actual user accounts. And we want to see, if you want, you can raise your hand, who measures that metric in order to measure the success?
A few, okay,
the
cool.
Conversion rate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of what?
How many users basically they...
Visitors turn into user
the
accounts.
visitors, they turned into actual accounts.
Okay.
So right on it comes the customer acquisition cost based on accounts. So every business wants to have high revenues and less expenses, but of course you need to find a balance, how much you give and what's the relevancy of what you give, you take back. So how much of those users basically engage with what you are giving. So it's a real metric that we take into account quite a lot. And do you also measure that as well?
Yeah, okay, quite a few hands, that's cool. And lifetime value is just the other side of the coin to customer acquisition costs. So that is actually from the sign up, how much revenue does a user generate up until, well, they unsubscribe, but hopefully they never unsubscribe and they'll always stay a user, so across their lifetime. And what is interesting here is that you can also look at the re-engagement rate. So how many times does the user actually come back? Maybe you want to raise your hands as well if you measure that. Yeah, well, the people that measure customer acquisition cost should also measure lifetime value, obviously. And the last thing is the churn rate, because clearly in online marketing we measure the bounce rate. So if we look at our user accounts, we want to know the churns as well. So how many inactive users do you have out of your entire user pool? And that's also something you want to optimize. So the point being, you really want to measure all the time. And those are pretty generic KPIs that you can work with, but be aware that clearly you might probably measure churn very differently than we would do. So you really have to adapt those metrics on how you measure the data and how the flow of users is across your platform. So this is really important.
We covered those 4 topics. We want to hear also if there is another success measurement, like a metric that you guys use that we don't. Anybody wants to enlighten us a little bit? If you use something else than we do. No worries.
Well, maybe we covered everything that's very important, so
Perfect.
That would be good.
So thank you very much for your time.
Hey, stop, there's one.
One question. So here you talk about, for conversion rate, you talk about users.
Yeah.
And for the cost of acquisition, you talk about customer.
Yeah, because that's what the abbreviation stands for, yeah.
Okay. Yes, but my question is, so the conversion rate is on the user that looks for jobs, so that the action is to look for jobs, submit, reply. But the customer, how can you calculate for example, the lifetime value of a user? Because the user itself doesn't generate revenue.
Yeah, it does.
Sorry, maybe.
No problem. That's a. Do you want to take it on? Okay, that's a very fair question. So, first of all, the confusion is clearly that this is called customer acquisition cost because the metric that is used across industries is called CAC. So, but for us, it's the user when we say that. So, in our scenario, it's the job seeker. So the job seeker signs up to talent.com, and from then on, we measure how many times does he come back and engages with our content and hence generates revenue. And how much did it cost for us to get this customer to convert into a user, to get this visitor, to convert into a user account. So this is what you want to measure, and you want to keep that in a healthy relationship, and ideally you want to keep that on a one-on-one basis. So put $1 in, get $1 back across time frame X that you set for your company to be useful.
Because the user generates revenues for every action that
exactly, but exactly. So for another vertical, that might be when they buy something else, maybe a clothing item, or things like that. The points when they generate revenue, whatever your business model might be. Cool. That was a really good one. Thank you.
Thank you.